it's working for us. Homeschooling has really been working out well for our family. Our children are thriving in it, and I've really had some enjoyable days teaching them and spending time with them. Most importantly, I value that so much. I value being able to be a part of seeing them grow and learn every day. I always found people's homeschool stories really interesting and just a lot of fun to listen to. So I thought it'd be really neat to share my homeschool story with you also. My journey hasn't been very long. It's only been a little over 2 years, but I thought it'd be fun to share with you guys. So I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, this is Holly. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're joining me today because today I'm sharing with you my homeschool story. So basically, I looked at the calendar this morning and I realized that we have chosen to start school in about 2 weeks from now. And I thought it'd be a great idea to kind of share my homeschool story since we are about to enter into our 3rd year of homeschooling. I can't even believe that I'm saying that we're about to enter into our 3rd year of homeschooling already. And so let me just say that my story, I felt like, is just so unique in a sense that I've always been someone that I never ever in the world thought I would be homeschooling. Our family, my husband and I, when we look at our family dynamic and the flow and like our culture of our family, we just never saw ourselves as a homeschool family. And it's something that I have really struggled with through the years. And I'll share with you a little bit about that. And as I take you back to where I believe God began to do a kind of a work in my heart to grace me to be able to get this far and to be continuing in this season of life. Now, I can't say that we're going to be doing this for 12 years for each of our kids or not. I'm just taking it 1 year at a time. So this is my homeschool story from what I believe is the beginning to today. And I'm hoping that someone is encouraged by it or enlightened by it if you found yourself in my shoes, in my situation, which is different from some stories that we hear a lot about where a parent has always wanted to homeschool and they're so glad that they're doing it. There have been some reluctant homeschoolers out there that have fallen in love with the process and they are enjoying it and they're on the bandwagon 100%. And I still cannot say that, to be honest with you. What gives me peace about continuing homeschooling is knowing that this is the right thing to do for our children and for our family. And that's where I'm at today. So we will take it year by year, but let's rewind and go back to, as I mentioned, the beginning to where I believe it all started. So I found myself strolling along, getting a little exercise when my oldest daughter was probably about 3 years old. Here I am going down the trails in our neighborhood, pushing her in her stroller. And I'm on my way back home when we passed our local elementary school, a great elementary school for our area that we always envisioned our children going to. One of the reasons we possibly even moved to this neighborhood, in this home, in our minds at least, we thought was because if we were going to live in this city, in this area, we wanted to be in the best school. So we moved from a neighborhood that was one of the schools that were not performing as high to one of the highest performing schools in our town. And lo and behold, as I'm walking and pushing my child and spending this quality time with her and just kind of enjoying nature on a beautiful day, something hits me in the gut, and drops in my spirit. And I was like, what? Huh? That doesn't make any sense. And what I heard was this: your children will not go to that school. And so that worked against all odds for me. That didn't make any sense to me. After all, it was part of my plan for our child's education path. And that's where I believe God began to work in me. I had my first child was, my first child is very interested in learning and is very inquisitive and likes to know information. And so even at a young age, she began to ask me questions and, Mommy, how do you do this? Can you teach me to read? And different things like that. So I began to do what I call parenting my child, because after all, as a mother, you want to meet your child's needs. And if you can help them with something, we all know that we're going to do that as best as we can and as best as we know how. And so that's what I aim to do when she asked me to teach her how to read. And lo and behold, and little did I know that I began homeschooling her without even realizing it. It was something that I like to call parenting her in my mind, where other people would say, oh no, you're homeschooling. But I just didn't define it as that. Now, in this process, we are just being very organic. I don't have a curriculum or anything on hand, and I just have letters and tiles and books, and we're just reading and playing and just living life and learning through living life. And it seemed to really be working well for her. Later, I'd come to find out that there's actually a term associated with that type of homeschooling. I just continued to do that, and also just began to do that when my second child came along as well. As her interest was there, I met her needs when it came to learning and growing and what we would call the academic world: math, reading, writing, coloring, things like that, just to expand and help them grow their skills. I just didn't know it when compared to many students that their interest in those areas began at such an earlier age. So as I toiled about this idea of homeschooling, because I kept finding myself around many people that did homeschooling. Homeschooling was not foreign to me. It was familiar to me. I learned about it as a young adult when I graduated college, and I'd seen children graduate homeschool, go to college, and be very successful. So I had nothing personally against homeschool. It seemed to be a great option for families. I was just saying it wasn't going to be an option that I chose to do. So during these early years, before age 5 in kindergarten, a friend of mine gave me a book, and I'm going to show you this book she gave me. It's called Educating the Wholehearted Child. This book is by Clay Clarkson with Sally Clarkson. And this book, as you could see, I'm going to flip through it real quick because it has lots of tiny words, and it is full of scriptures as reference points where you can go back and look up things. And so I have never completed this book because it really has become a resource and a learning tool and a guide for me. And I've continuously come back and picked it up, and I've read through many parts of it, but I have not studied it out. And it really is almost a study tool, a study guide. There's so much depth in this and wisdom in this and insight in this. But I just remember one point that was a very important part in when I'm defining my homeschool story. And that was when I had first opened this book and just began to read it. I don't even think I can get through the first few pages when everything in my soul and my spirit and my mind began to just resonate with the words that were on this page to such a deep place where it just brought such emotion and tears to my eyes, because I began to see how great a thing homeschooling is and how God can use us as parents in helping guide our children through these academic years. And so that was a really big moment for me. Nevertheless, because I had my plan, I was like, okay, I felt something there that meant something. But my plan is we're putting our kids in school because I am a businesswoman and I'm going back to work full time. I'd already been working while the kids were home, and it just wasn't an area that I was ever planning on letting go. And it wasn't an area that I wanted to continue to necessarily have my kids alongside me while I worked as well either. And so we began discussing school options because as a new parent, you begin to hear about school wait lists and how they could be a year or 2 years out. And I was like, oh no, we have a 3-year-old. We're 2 years out from school. It's time to start looking at schools. Outside the public school, we knew that was an easy way, easy option to get in any time of the year. But we were considering some alternatives, some private schools, some charter schools, and thus began my deep dive into researching every type of school that is available in my area to meet my children's academic needs, and for my husband to do our child and our children no harm in how they were educating our children. And so from private schools, Christian private schools, charter schools, and all of the tours and the visits and the research, we landed in a space and had peace to give this public school in our neighborhood a try for kindergarten. Because after all, what damage can be done in just kindergarten, age 5, right? Well, the first week, my daughter comes home with tears in her eyes because you know that most favorite subject that kids love? It's either one or two, right? PE or in lunch. Well, PE was the area that was causing her angst. She didn't enjoy PE, the time you're supposed to go and have fun and to play. And so that was the beginning of many things that occurred during her short 6-month span in kindergarten public school system. And, our attention really got caught along with everyone else's when the world shut down due to the pandemic. And we finished out that year doing schooling at home, public schooling at home through virtual learning. And that really, as I mentioned, opened our eyes like it did many parents and caused me to reevaluate a few choices and decisions, and for my husband and I to have lots more conversation about how our children should be moving forward with their education. And so we finish the year out and we go into the summer months, and it's time to decide again, what will we do, Lord, for this next year for our children, for school? And we chose almost the very last minute, which was about 2 weeks out, like we are today, about 2 weeks out from starting school, that I sent a note to the school to withdraw my child from the school system, letting them know that we would be homeschooling going forward. Now, the first year was a huge learning curve. I had 2 weeks in my mind as a rookie homeschool parent to get things together and find the curriculum and research everything, and was up nights after night after night, well into the midnight hour, researching and reading, because that's what I do. I am a researcher. I want to be well informed and equipped on decisions that I make. And all that done to come back to advice that was given to me and a recommendation that was shared with me from the very beginning, and to select a curriculum that worked beautifully with my daughter. And we did very much a traditional at school, a school at home type of agenda and schedule. I had the little desk and I decorated the room and made it special, and we did our lessons and the Pledge of Allegiance and things like that they should learn and know. And it's a requirement, I felt like, for my state to in the area of good citizenship, so that they know how to honor our country and understand what America stands for. So we did learn a lot of those things that you would do in school and start our day and incorporate things into that. And we kind of followed along with the traditional school schedule as well through the year for the holidays and the breaks so they can be out at the same time that their friends were. And, the first 30 days must have been one of the hardest things and transitions in my life that I have gone through compared to any other job that I've ever done. And mentally, I've had a hard time just calling myself teacher because I never saw myself as a teacher. I never wanted to be a teacher. I love teachers. I have and know many people in my life that are teachers, but it was just never something that I had placed on myself. I've always said, well, I could parent my child. When people would say, oh, you're homeschooling at such a young age, I was like, no, I'm parenting them. And even to this day, that word kind of is a trigger for me, and I lean towards being a home educator, just to change my mindset around it and to call it something different so it has a new meaning for me and that I can embrace it a little easier. So we successfully made it through the first year through many challenges, many ebbs and flows, which I hope to dive into and share with you one day, because I know we all have our challenges that we face. And sometimes it's nice to hear how someone has overcome and gone through something to keep us focused and to keep us persevering to go through something as well. And we finished that year and had a graduation because I ended up doing my second daughter too. We ended up doing a pre-K so she can work alongside of her sister. She wanted her own curriculum, and so I accommodated her even though it wasn't necessary for her to do it. We gave her a little bit of work so that she can continue and grow on her interest level as well. I've always wanted to meet my kids at where they were in their learning, and not pressure them or give them too much. At the same time, I didn't want to give them too little and not challenge them a little bit. And so that's the happy place, is an individual learning plan. Otherwise, my kids in particular can become very bored with the process. They like learning new and exciting information, is what I've learned. I've drawn closer to them and learned how they learn, and it really has brought our family closer together, especially after we finished that first full year and began our second year, and how things went so much smoother for us, and how I had picked up and gained so much more confidence and changed things so that it can work for our family. And I think one of the greatest pieces of advice that I learned was that whatever curriculum you're using, allow that curriculum to serve you. And so don't be subject to the curriculum. Let it serve you and your family how your family needs it. So that brought us to today. A completed 2 years, getting ready to go into our third year of homeschool. And, there was still lots of conversation that happened over the summer months. Still lots of, should we continue? Should we not? Should we look at some other alternatives that we have in mind? Not the public school system, but some other options that we have considered that may potentially work well for our children. And some situation scenarios looked very appealing, but there just was not peace to pursue that and go that direction. The greatest peace came from continuing to do what we were already doing as a family, and that was continue to do homeschool education with them. And so if you're out there and if you're on the fence trying to decide, is this something that you should do or not do with your children? That's a really big question. And my advice to you is to follow after peace, whatever gives you the most peace. Sometimes we are stretched and we have to take a step of faith and go into a direction that we may not even see ourselves going into because There is a sense of peace there, and God can grace you to do something that you might not have ever saw or imagined yourself doing. I truly believe that you are equipped to give your child whatever they need. And I really believe that schooling is unique to each family and each individual child, and that you have to make the decision that you feel led to do for your children. But I just wanted to get on here and share my story after reflecting back today and looking at the calendar and being within that little 2 week span, and just the memories and everything that kind of flooded me as I reflected and thought about our homeschool story and how we got started, and wanted to get on here and share it with you. And I hope that you enjoyed the story in some way. And thanks so much for joining me today. Thanks so much for listening. If you would like to get notified of when I post, go ahead and be sure to click that bell button below and give this a like. That really helps get my message out and my story out to encourage more people. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.